Now on with the show. If it's not eating for survival, it's entertainment. If it's not sex for species perpetuation, it's entertainment. If it's not sweat for sustenance, it's entertainment. Question is there anything man does not absolutely necessary for mere physical survival that is not simply entertainment? If you talk about it, it's entertainment. But once you understand this, you can raise your standard of verbal entertainment to a level that actually deserves a new synonym. Trying to be more conscious, to think futuristically, to pursue non-traditional ideas, all while living on this planet, is like having a raging locomotive in your head with no assurance that there are any tunnels up ahead. There are two ways by which to be depressed: about being ordinary or about not being. Chew, chew. Being civilized is all about pretending that what is obvious might still somehow not be. A real mystic defined once more time. A mystic. A fancy name for someone who can think for himself. According to legend, on this one world, they turned over religion to bankers, the arts to priests, education to jocks, and government to the criminally imbecilic. My God, we live on that world. A boy asked his father, "How do you spell pervert?" "With a capital P," he replied. A girl asked her mother, "Will you be more popular if you smile when you speak?" And her mother replied, "In the dark, what difference does it make?" And the girl said, "Was it from conversations such as this that man got the idea for an unconscious mind?" "My God," cried the mother, "we live in that mind." Breathing's mechanical, hunger automatic, the body's a rut, life a habit. So where's the extraordinary possibilities come in? Quiz: what's worse than getting old? Two things: getting old and not realizing it, and getting old and not doing anything about it. Every 10 years, this one man would ditch all friends he had known that long. Even the ordinary can see wrinkles, liver spots, and skin cancers, but only a sneaky devil mystic recognizes the comfortable impression his routine thoughts have made on the mattress of his mind. Get up off of that thing. Think and you'll feel better. You can entertain people by tickling them, frightening them, amazing them, or by sticking your finger directly in their eye. The last type of performer is in least demand. A man asked his doctor, "How come I enjoy the drugs I put in my brain at the time I put them in, but don't like them when they begin to wear off?" And the doctor pointed out the window to all of the city. A man asked his lawyer, "How come we're born naked and then buried with our clothes on?" Give a pretty good pause, then read this one. A man asked his cerebral cortex, "How come you're not supposed to shoot a wounded skunk more than twice?" There is a difference between advice and body and fender work. Body and fender work's worth something. Okay, a big-time quizzer for you. Why are health, aging, and death such popular subjects with ordinary minds? To help keep them from thinking about extraordinary ways to live. Conversation. Some people are more full of shit than others. How can you tell? Ask them.
Yeah.
Life's own sense of humor can be seen in the number of serious people it produces. If you hitch up a lazy horse to lead an indifferent team, just where is it you expect to go? Wagons ho. One guy told the mind that life gave him, "I'll do anything for you, but follow you." Rockets ho. There are two possible audiences for transcendental ideas: those who like hearing them applied to the overall nature of life, and those who enjoy hearing them aimed at the individual, especially themselves. Seeing as how I promised your mom I'd look after you, I'm not going to ask which group you're in. Any left-handed man can annoy a right-handed one, and any right-handed one a lefty. But only a nine-aligned thinker can tick off an entire squad of pitchers and catchers. How can you tell that a mystic's begun the slide to the killing floor? He begins to believe that everyone should be a mystic. Once one man realized that clocks are round, carousels free, space curved, and numbers finite, he was afraid to count up as high as he knew he actually could. Some rockets don't require a space agency, just as some outdoor mines don't need starter fluid. As he poked around in the smoldering coals, one man thought, "Okay, here's the deal. I can either leave them all behind or stay here with them and be behind myself." One man used to give himself hints, except they were actually for his friends. And when he wasn't doing this, he was doing it the other way around. One guy thought, "I don't care what I do as long as it's something I've never done before." If thoughts were deeds and deeds were thoughts, and deeds were deeds and thoughts were thoughts, and thoughts were partially thoughts and deeds were partially deeds and thoughts, then we'd probably be no more of a mixed up condition than we are now. Question: who has the most fun, outlaws or mystics? Answer: how can you tell? One man suddenly realized that the Tower of Babel was not totally destroyed.
Yeah.
One man muttered to himself, "If my whacker was as small as my mind, I'd never get laid or have any reasonably neat thoughts." And the pseudo-sector of his posterior frontal lobe said, "Hey, don't push it." Fact: everyone has an imaginary part of the brain that hasn't been discovered yet. Or else how do you account for this kind of stuff? One guy described himself as at least having the intelligence that God gave a goose. And the goose lobby responded, "Hey, don't push it." Everybody shills for somebody. Yeah, we all work for life, but still, you end up shilling for some local scam. A man asked a mystic, "Is the trick to think more about yourself or less?" And the mystic replied, "Yes, one or the other." And the man asked, "Well, should we think about things we don't normally think about, or simply think more than we ordinarily do?" And the mystic replied, "Yes, one of the two."
Yeah.
And the man thoughtfully paused for a moment, then said, "Ah, I believe I've got it now." And the mystic says, "Yes, and that'll be $25, please." And several major representatives of life standing nearby said, we'd have done it for 10. The view of change and progress from all possible positions and times. We're now paying the price for everything. For the few, the real problem is not that familiarity breeds contempt, but rather a comfortable stupor. At the beginning of each new thinking week, one man would tie brightly colored balloons to his head in the attempt to make it seem like a more festive occasion. And one man used to wonder if some other man made everything sound allegorical and metaphorical just to cover up the fact that they didn't actually know anything special at all. Then there was this other man who heard what I just read and wished he hadn't. You can hide a snake in a box, and you can hide a box in a snake, but either way, you'll eventually be found out, since all of life is obvious to a man who knows how to open a box carefully and knows how a snake is supposed to look without the introduction of square foreign objects into its otherwise sleek chassis. The world's first comedy club was the Garden of Eden. And then life figured they'd better get serious quick. Philosophy, theology, cosmology, and physics in a combined doctoral degree. When you understand where dust comes from, you've got it all. One popular public speaker was particularly well-liked for his liberal use of obscure quotes, until it was discovered that he had made them all up himself. Well, needless to say that his popularity took a decided down curve after that. You think this may be how all the various mystical systems got started? When creatures are especially small, such as fleas, it is quite easy to mistake a fleeting shadow for the thing itself. One man renamed his thoughts fleas. After being accused of talking too much, one man replied, yes, life can be verbose. And several people who heard this weren't actually certain what he intended. The simple fret sin, the sophisticated boredom, the rich poverty, the powerful deposal. And a mystic calls his home planet, or goes to the beach, or something. One guy told another guy, sometimes it's hard for me to tell if you're kidding or not. And the other guy replied, hard for you? Think about me. Guess you could go on and even define a mystic as someone who does know when he's serious or not, inasmuch as he knows no one is. One man whispered to his new, exciting, exotic thoughts, we can't go on meeting like this. And they replied, I beg your pardon? If you can piss other people off, just think what life can do to you. The laws of physics don't work on a mystic. Oh, sure they work. He just won't admit it. Memory and consumer safety jointly defined. Total recall, death. Pause to allow the living in the audience to get it. For the more alert, civilization becomes boring and new about every 2 minutes. To effect increased consciousness, one must impose on the mortal sense of order a new level of disorder, a sort of focused mental looseness. There is a difference between mysticism and the ballet. Some people like mysticism more. You can be caught pretending to be anything. Anything, that is, but stupid. All normal people continually skate on the edge of transcendental thought. What more is to be said once you hear that the animals ate Aesop? Perhaps sometimes I should make it more obvious that even though I wrote them on 2 separate pages, see, that's for dramatic effect, so I wait and go through all that. This time I can't resist doing them again. All normal people continually skate on the edge of transcendental thought. What more is to be said once you hear that the animals ate Aesop? If men did not take civilization and the singular life of man seriously, civilization could not exist and man's singular life just barely. Understanding this, a mystic both cares and doesn't particularly care. If you call life stupid, you miss the point. A real thinker can always start all over again. A real thinker has to. A hierarchy of definitions. Talk, man. The arts. The depicting of man. Religion. The dissecting of man. Psychology. The less bloody dissection. Mysticism. Another non-recognized way you can go about it. Either keep a good dictionary or discover that one word which has no synonym. The mental life of a mystic briefly described. Just one major breakthrough after another. Don't read this page on the air. If you talk about anything enough, such as Lyme's disease, dysfunctional families, glass ceilings, and mystics, they'll eventually go away. I told you not to read this one. We were last time, several times, and all the time until further time notice, reflecting upon the workings of the mind, civilization, verbalization, and as always, the ever popular obviousness. For those of you that sometimes prefer to hear all of this apparently applied to life in general, that is a kind of weird sociology, as opposed to some of you who prefer to hear it sometimes presented as unusual psychology, particularly if in some way it seems to apply to you. And if it doesn't, all I've got to do is make it sound real yucky and accusatory, and you begin to think, well, I didn't realize when you started, but yeah, that applies to me. To the former, to the turrets, to the gates. You can be sure you're civilized after all that confusing, conflicting intro. Remember, we're talking about the obvious and what civilization is and the numerous definitions that I have in some way come up with of late. Civilization representing the combined collective reality of man, the intellect, jewel creature. Anything from the level of that middle part of the brainstem where supposedly some of you quit being lizards and reptiles and became accountants and bankers. And that's not much of a jump, though. Wait a minute. By the way, my apologies to the lizards and the snakes. I didn't mean to step on their little feet, so to speak. I was going to use some of the common examples in the obviousness and how part of what civilization is and part of its purpose keeping, you got to remember, at any particular time, 3 billion people on this planet are mad at civilization. If we've taken all 6 billion now as being civilized to some degree. At least at any particular second, half of them think the other half are uncivilized. Half of them think that the other half should move away from their neighborhood. Half of them think that the other half shouldn't be allowed to own guns or CDs or good clothes. That half of them, the other half should be run out of town or off the planet until we can figure out what the hell's going on. You simply have this kind of continual friction, which the ordinary, as always, take in a personal human level, that it has to do with conflicting nationalistic fidelities or allegiances to religion and all that. They'll do anything other than go around and sniff the planet and think, do you realize that 6 billion people have pissed on this planet? Did I pause long enough for those alert to catch on? Okay. But the obviousness of life and how civilization part of, back to where we were, that although it seems as though there is a continuing conflict described in all manners, such as religious, nationalistic, culturally, sexually nowadays, everything. You know that. And it's nothing new. They change the terms and make the warfare sound more up to date. Same way as clothes and fashion. But consider the obviousness and how civilization must continually talk around the obvious. Why the obvious cannot simply be the obvious. That civilization can be defined, as there was one tonight that said that civilization is being able to take the obvious and still think, well, that somehow it's somehow. I mean, it can't be that. That's civilization. It is, in fact, if you can see it on a more personal level, it'd be a little harder to explain, which I won't try then. Well, shit, who wants a challenge? Even individually. What passes for intelligence, education, the progress of man at an individual level is the same thing. I was going to pick out some more examples, to use the great brush of apparently talking about the collective aspect of man. One of them I mentioned before, but I was going to, this sounds like a bit. If this was a TV show, I thought this was. Nah. Here's my bit. You can tell you're civilized when. That's not like fun. Put on some graphics quick that says, you can tell you're civilized when. And I'll become famous. That'll be my... One I pointed out before, but I always like to bring it up. But you can tell you're civilized when, as long as they still have, and the public needs it. It's not just somebody somewhere misled, but as long as there needs to be these quizzes, the serious quizzes, questions, how to tell if you're an alcoholic. And we've been through this, I know. I'm going to bring up more, but I always like that one. Don't ask me why. Well, you can ask me why, and it's none of your business. How to tell if you're an alcoholic. And get a pencil and paper, they say, on the TV, and take these down. Well, they say it seriously. This could be a loved one. This could be your husband, your son. How to tell 10 warning signs, how to tell that he might be an alcoholic. Now, besides all the laughter, I'll say it again, all it takes, if obviousness had any correlation directly, as we use it here, with intelligence, as we use it here. So is there any correlation between just, if you want to call it IQ, if you believe in those kind of tests drawn up by people who live and teach in Southern California, if you have any faith in that, in the regular IQ, the standard IQ test, or just, as they say in Southern Alabama, walking around intelligence. Either way, then you've got to face this. Here's the obviousness. The obviousness is, if you don't know whether you have a problem drinking or not, you do. And it's not just alcohol. But there's even expanded ones. Well, I know the only reason you're laughing, that is so funny. And I could use others. It is so funny on the basis of showing again that life has a great sense of humor as witnessed by, you just don't notice, as witnessed by the serious people, the number of serious people it produces. Which is, look around and count. Other than us and a few others in other cities I happen to know personally, we're about it. Yeah. I mean, the rest of the people, sure, they can have a laugh, but what they laugh at? They'll laugh at hearing somebody make fun of the other people that they don't think are serious in the right way. Which is why humor to them is serious. And that's why I point out it is normally aggressive, it is normally hostile. It is it's always partisan. And hostile, I just use the word I have in the past to try to get your attention so you consider that if you extract aggression from ordinary humor, it's not funny. And it's not funny to those who hear it. Because when I say that almost the whole world is serious, I'm afraid you missed this, the reason I'm stopping. Do you understand what I'm saying? That right now in a comedy club, or it could be, let's use that, professional. You go pay money for somebody to make you laugh. And you can say, well, boy, this is obviously not serious. Think about it. What do they laugh at? I don't mean just sometimes. I'm talking about the whole act. I'm talking about humor as a phenomenon on this planet, practiced by ordinary people. It is a kind of seriousness because what they're laughing at, why I've used the term hostile, they're always pointing at somebody and laughing. And what they're pointing at is other people. It could be sexual, it could be racial, nationalistic, religious, class, social, but they're laughing at somebody, but they're laughing on the basis what made the joke funny, and I'm not going to pull out one. You can think of whatever the latest joke is. It's a laugh at somebody that they're taking serious. What they said, that's right before the punchline. As the guy goes, da-da-da-da-da, and this other person goes, the butt of the joke coming up. Let's say it's a 3-line joke. That's the standard. One guy says, hey, da-da-da-da-da-da. And the guy's going to be the butt of the joke. The guy, the group, the woman. The second part goes, well, da-da-da-da-da-da. Respond to answer. And then, get ready. The other guy goes, da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. And everybody laughs. Standing there was hostility. But the only reason it's funny is the second person was serious in their response. I was hoping you'd put it. The first person go, boy, why are you dressed up in that funny religious costume? Now, why are you? And that person goes, well, because it represents so-and-so. Seriously, that's some other religion. Just pick that out. And they go, well, because our teaching is so-and-so. The first guy goes, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, and made him look like an idiot. At least assuming that the joke was told with the right crowd. Of course, the right crowd is that whoever told the joke, he is telling a joke, and he did not pick out a major, if we were going to use religion, for the butt of the joke. He picked out a minority religion, or even better yet, one that is almost foreign to the local tribe, the local country. So he knows they're going to laugh. But what are they laughing at? They're laughing at the fact that idiot, not me, not my kind, took it seriously. So do you understand that with other people, humor is serious? Very few people are non-serious. It has to be taken serious, is there any chance that you have a drinking problem? I was going to pick out some more if you think that one's funny. Here's one that especially if we got civilians watching, I bet right off the bat you won't think funny, is now I like, is there's serious discussion there, so I'm informed and I believe it, that there are courses now being given, whether for credit or not, in our major colleges dealing with the problem with the uncertainty, this is the way I heard it put, of bringing in men and women so that they can discuss, especially at the college level, these budding geniuses, to discuss the uncertainty of what constitutes rape. The only thing I figure is this the same person that used to wonder, how do you know if you're an alcoholic? Of course, for any of you civilians out there that are fixing to storm the Bastilles, we all know that rape is just as serious as alcoholism. But think about it. I just picked it out because it is right on the cutting edge of societal stupidity. The uncertainty, and I know as well, I've heard as much as you have. Of course, women, it's already, or men could have said, the obvious one is if a woman says no, that means no. But then they can go, wait a minute. I'm just picking that out. Rape means no more to me than alcoholism does, other than the fact that being aggressive, acting, all that, I know. I picked that because I know it'd be a good hot subject and it's right up to date. But think about it. Now, I'm sure that some of you women might immediately make, especially if you'd ever been raped or felt like you'd really been talked into having sex. I'm not talking about the act. I'm talking about that they say now. We have reached such a point, and I don't have to do any more for you, surely. There's men's already responded. It's normal men and go, wait a minute. I know sometimes a woman says, no, but then I've known women that, they said no, and I kept on pushing it, and they went, oh, what the hell? Or they said no, and we went ahead and did it, and later, but she fell in love with me. She's just crazy about me. Women have that kind of streak in them a lot. So they talk about that, and then they go, well, now it's reached the point of uncertainty. Think about it. Here's the obvious one next, if you want to hear it. The uncertainty of what actually constitutes homicide. I mean, they arrest this man, and he's standing there with a gun, it's hot, or a knife, and the blood's there, and it's the type, and they're saying, this his brother, or a person. And I'll admit, I'm speaking now for society, perhaps a few years down the road. I'll admit, on the surface, it might look, fairly obvious. Like a woman goes to the police station and says, I've been raped. And they go, well, now you sure rape is a technical, and she says, I've been raped. And they go, well, maybe we better bring down one of our psychologist patrolmen. Oh, is he still writing tickets? Well, he's on traffic duty, but he'll be back. And perhaps we should explore this further. Well, all this is just one step. A man says to his wife, perhaps, her wife says, honey, I think that you have a drinking problem. I mean, there he is. He hadn't left the house. He has no job. He's lost a job. He's all beat up. His hair looks like he's been fried like this. He can't get laid down. His eyes, frightening. And she says, honey, I think perhaps you have a drinking problem. And he thinks, since when did you become a psychologist? I'd like to have another opinion. I want to take one of those tests. Get that brochure. Besides a little humor, now methinks that you should be able to think now a few years down the road it could be the same thing. There's a guy with a pistol or the knife and the blood still dripping and him standing there, and first patrolman up, probably not all that sophisticated, he says, well, there he is. There's the culprit. Let's arrest the man. He murdered him. And a detective, not a uniformed guy, a real detective comes. He said, wait a minute there, son. Wait a minute there, corporal, sergeant, whoever. I know it appears obvious, but hey, this is the year 2000. Things are not necessarily that obvious anymore. And then they might have to have some kind of call together. If not just this one guy's case, a few of those cases will pile up, and then at some of our major universities and think tanks, there'll have to be courses, seminars, symposiums discussing the uncertainties regarding the matter of murder. Silly, ridiculous. How about that? Let me wrap it up, at least this one part. All those little minor ones, here's the ones that's been going on, variations of this, for as long as you've got written history of man. We are still safely civilized, and no problem, everything is fine, so long as this goes on. Here's the latest version that I know of. As long as there's still a question, that as long as apparently intelligent people, which they are, they'll be on TV, there'll be a spokesman, guys in suits and ties, doctors, of various disciplines, if not sciences, but they'll be important people. We're still civilized so long as this question arises. Here's the latest version. This proposed new toxic dump is the location we picked out, the one that the local government's proposed. Is it actually the best location, or did they pick it out simply because it's in a minority or lower class neighborhood? We're going to have to, we need to have some more investigation of this. Right, some of them might be alcoholics. Maybe they should take the test. But, all right, I assume you do get the humor. They do not build toxic waste dumps out near Martha's Vineyard. They do not do it. They don't do it in Beverly Hills. They do not do it. They do not do it in Boca Raton. They never have. Never. They didn't do it back when Athens had its own. When Athens had its own version instead of. They do not build toxic waste dumps in, what do they call that section of Philadelphia? The Main Line. They don't do that so long as they got Allentown not that far away. All right, back when Athens had its own Allentown, when Athens, Baghdad, Samaria. But think about it. It still goes on, right? Just right up to today. That there'll be a discussion. They're deciding now that they're going to dump stuff. And they picked out this beautiful site. In fact, the local community, the local government, the county or the state or the federal has already bought the property. Nobody even knew about it. They bought it up and the farmers were glad to sell it, or the people there. It was just old deserted fields. And suddenly it's announced that we're going to start bringing in toxic dump from other counties and miles away, and we're going to put it here. We decided, we did lots of research, and it just so happened this is the best possible place, and it just so happened it's over here in a low-class neighborhood or some minority neighborhood. And they go, wait a minute. And they raise some little hell. It always goes on because life knows how to dance with itself. And so some of the minorities, maybe people, such recent immigrants here that they don't even speak English, but they hear about it. They come up with a lawyer. Somebody comes up and the lawyer says, wait a minute. You can't pull this on these people. So then the government comes in, a spokesman for whoever it is. And he says, well, nobody wants it in their backyard. You got to admit that. And the attorney said, yeah, I know that. I don't want my backyard either. And he said, but the question is, are we doing this fairly? Is there some justice here? This is America, by God. Yeah. Is this actually the best spot? The guy of the government goes, yes, guy in a suit. Now think about this. You're waiting too long to, start laughing. The attorney says, now wait. Now, listen, I know it's got to go somewhere. I know we can explain. I didn't go through that for you, but you can do that. Nowadays, because of the so-called dwindling supplies of fossil fuels and et cetera, we have got to rely more and more on nuclear power, and therefore there is a cost for everything we do, follow progress, and we're going to have to dump this stuff somewhere. I know nobody wants it, but we're trying to be fair. We don't have it all here in our state, whatever state, let's say Oklahoma. He says, we don't have it all here in Oklahoma, we have it all over the country, which sounds pretty good to start with until you find out where it is in every community all over. But anyway, and so the government says that. The government being the middle class, spokesman, collective kind of civilized guy for life. He's the local shill. Working for life, but he's running the local scam, but it's the middle class, which is the decent scam. It's actually more than that, but what's really running it, they make the middle class guy out there and play Kermit and Bert and Ernie. So, consider the upper end, or the civilized, the most apparent, compassionate, decent voice of civilization says, well, now we've got to put this somewhere. It just will not disappear. So, somebody else. So we got this dance going now. Life always does it this way. That's the way things move. That is the way civilization seems to stagger along. that doesn't just go in a straight line. It is always based upon apparent partisanism, always based upon some sort of struggle. And of course the dolts, the shills, the suckers love to say yes, and hopefully based upon the struggle between truth and error and goodness and injustice. And those working most directly for life go, yeah, right, yeah, you got it, yeah. And so we're back to now. The government points out we've got to do this for everyone's sake. And we have done. And he'll turn around and ask somebody with the EPA or whoever it is. He said, picking out this spot, I don't have all the figures here with me, but I brought Miss or Mr. So-and-so here with me from Washington. This spot now that we've decided that we were going to do here in Oklahoma, how many years have we been researching this? And he'll probably turn face and say, well, now, we started the first time in 1978, we started doing surveys here. And it sounds like it's just something that's huge. Been going 10 years. And so, as a matter of fact, I look here, we've had 14 town meetings, et cetera, through the years 1981 through 85. And nobody remembers a town meeting. They can't say, no, you never call any town meetings. I go, well, sure we did. Where were you? But remember who we're dealing with now. We're dealing with the lower class of some minority neighborhood. And so the attorney or their representative, they say, all right, we understand it's got to be done. So we'll let all that bygones be bygones. But now it's to the point, we won't know one thing. I mean, we're humans. Yes. We won't know one thing. Is real justice and goodness and decency and the democratic way of life going on here? In other words, is this location that you picked, that you got 500 people here, they say, this place that you picked is right now where our kids used to play in the middle of our little community, is where you want to build a dump? They go, yes. Are we asking one thing? Is that really the best possible spot? Or is there something, did you pick it out just because it's us? Now, at least you think that I'm pointing out in some way, which you people wouldn't. If you do, you're a civilian after all, and you've been shilling here for nobody. At least you think that the comment, or what I'm saying, is just some reflection on the majority of the weaker, lower class people. It's not just that, because they will end up with representatives. Or you can have, if you like it this way, when I say apparently intelligent people, newscasters, commentators, that will say, I have been thinking about this. This story popped up yesterday, that town meeting down there, and it'll be like the editorial on the network news or some PBS station, and there'll be an actual serious discussion. We're talking about compassionate people, priests, chaplains, medical doctors that are not part of that lower class community that's now in danger. And they'll say, I've looked at those figures. Now, I've read through that report. I mean, it was lengthy, but I've gave it a pretty good reading. And I'm going to tell you, I still have serious question. To me, I'm still uncertain. I'm still, to me, there's still some uncertainty. Is that actually the best place? Now, I'm not accusing anyone yet, but I want to know, did they pick that because it is absolutely the best possible place, or because it's in a lower class neighborhood? You remember the title of this? You can rest assured, have no fear, no matter how bad things look in your local neighborhood. Of course, you might be living where they're about to do it. And you would think, well, locally, this is not so good. I'm talking about worldwide. Talking about the collective ball of man. Have no fear. You can rest assured that we are just civilized, we're just chugging right along, so long as that kind of thing still goes on. And humans do it with a straight face. Like, wait a minute. Let me get this clear. Are you saying that that's actually, you checked all kinds of locations. They got reams of paper. They won't ever show it to you, or if they do it, who wants to look through it, saying, well, look, we considered, what was it, Dr. So-and-so? Well, if I remember, we considered, through that 10-year period, we considered over 27 different locations. Oh, that sounds great. And it just, so you actually did. I mean, that just wasn't the first one. Oh, heavens no. We spent 10 years researching this. And they all go, that there's still some question. There's some question that, yeah, all that sounds good. You don't, but are you sure that you're not just putting it over there because it's a lower class neighborhood? Can you believe that? Well, I don't know whether I actually have a drinking problem or not. That civilization, it almost begs so much to go. Except you got to remember this, you're missing the point just to say, well, God, they're all stupid. I can say you're missing the point, which may or may not, I may sound like I'm being an apologist for civilization, or that there was some more subtle kind of spiritual message that, well, you shouldn't be laughing at people who are dumber than you are. You know, hell, if that's life, everybody's dumber than I am. If there was some level to judge intelligence. That is what drives it out there. That is what gives it the apparent music to dance to, that they run back and forth doing the tango on this floor. Goes backwards and forwards. But as far as it having anything to do with anything that would pass for being intelligence by the dictionary's own definition, you miss it to say they're stupid. What you're close to is, I suggest in all due humility, that I point out that civilization, and by de facto definition, the intelligent people of civilization, which is everyone out there, the whole game is, the whole dance is to try in some way trip around the light fantastic, to trip around the floor and never step on the obvious. What is harder to point out than the obvious, though, is the obviousness behind the obviousness. Such as, I'll play someone else's part. I'll play a stranger's part. Hi, stranger. Did you hear what we're talking about? Yes, I did. You got anything to say? I'd like to ask a question. Why does life operate in this way? What if we answered life, this stranger, representing a disinterested party that somehow kept his brain together and came in and heard this and asked this question? What would happen if we did answer in the obvious? If life did? Besides your laughter thus far, what if we got to jump right in the middle of reality, which is the only sorts of, or is the sort of thing that only a non-partisan, non-linear thinker can do, assuming you can hear it. So we got to cut out everything that came before and just, you got to know what came before in the sequence of life and jump right in and say, right now, we're starting reality in one little quantum piece. We have dissected this one discrete piece, and suddenly they start and do the same thing. They announce, here it is in the news, and they say, here's an important announcement from the EPA, the National, or it is the Nuclear Energy Agency. And they say, we have decided after 10 years here of research and blah, 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 we have decided that there's a plot that's known as old, it was McDonald's farm. It's McDougal's old farm. At any rate, it's an area that we, amongst those that we had considered, that there will be now the latest toxic dump to help relieve the pressure on some of the other states and other locales. We will be directly breaking ground to build a new toxic dump facility right outside near the property that used to be known as McDougal's Farm, which is approximately 20 miles south by southeast of Oklahoma City. And he's having a press conference and said, are there any questions? And the reporter stands up and he said, I've been following this sort of thing for a while, and I happen to know I live around there, and I got a little leak about where you were going to do this earlier today, and I checked, and that is over in a minority neighborhood. It is lower class. We're talking about trailer parks. We're talking about migrant farm workers, and I have seen in the last 20 years, to me, the possibility of a disturbing pattern. And the head of the man who was making this, he says, what do you mean? And he says, I got one question. I would like to know, did the agency pick out that spot because it was the best possible location, or because it's in a lower class or minority neighborhood? And the head of the agency, he says, are you an idiot? We picked it out, of course, because it's in a lower class neighborhood and they can't do anything about it. But we've been doing that. That's the way life's been going on now for 3,500 years. How'd you get to be a reporter? I thought at least you had to have, like a bachelor's degree to get on a major paper. You didn't read any history. Or even notwithstanding not reading history, you've never just kind of looked around at life and realized that life's kind of arranged in a certain way. I mean, I know people talk about it in another way, but then it's kind of arranged like it is. And then people, life is like it is. And this reporter's going, huh? Life is like it is, and then people talk about it another way. You know? Yeah. Kid, aren't you going to play the game? You realize, and the head man, he's going to say, you realize you're not going to have a job, you know, when you get back to the paper. And by then, of course, you understand I am having to just rent reality. But by then, everybody around him, it would be like some sort of science fiction movie or disaster movie. The ground would begin to break open. Everybody would get away from the other reporters, and something would swallow, something horrible. This man would explode like a bad pimple. Well, you understand? Well, you also understand, I can make it sound worse, or let's be more obvious. That can't happen. And yet you think, I'm assuming that you do hear the truth. This has nothing to do with politics or class people. Alpha males run the pack. I don't care whether it's wolves, I don't care whether it's humans, I don't care whether it's a church, I don't care whether it's a nation. And if you don't know that, then you can't even spell obvious. You can't even smell obvious, much as I spell it. So the thing is, you could say, well, wait a minute, you're right in a sense. If you could take away the civilian, hostile, sarcastic humor in that, which is not really humor. The obvious is not funny. It's you taking the opposite side. Seriously, it's the only reason that people laugh at so much of this. Well, that, and I know I have such a charming demure that just seems to bring out the good nature in people. That is so obvious, and it makes sense, I assume you hear what I'm saying, that it's always been true. And you could say, well, somebody could say that. You didn't lose your place. I just pointed out, I was saying, at least rhetorically, that can't happen. Forget about the thing that if it did happen, the ground would open up and swallow this reporter. He'd just disappear, or suddenly everybody would turn away, and like it never happened. And then the camera would go back, and sure enough, he's just gone. Like it was some kind of trick photography that he just faded him off the screen. But all that sounds all right, which I've said things like that before, that if somebody did that, and suddenly they'd go and explode, or nobody'd see them, it's not that difficult. You don't have to go to that trouble. The way life handles it is, it never happens. But the question was, me saying rhetorically, why not? Because let's assume that you do see the validity, that you knew the truth of it. They built it there. They looked around. They didn't even consider Beverly Hills. Never even consider it. They did not consider the fashionable part of Oklahoma City. Was not even in the running. They didn't consider any rural land that was anywhere close to one of Oklahoma's state senators. Don't know why, but not even close. I mean, not even the same end of the state. All right? You knew that. As far back as you find history, the Egyptian kings, hey, they didn't let them go bury dead horses and stuff next to the king's palace. They didn't have landfills there. So there it is, and you can say, well, to answer my rhetorical question, life handles it these way, nobody ever asked. And you should be asking yourself, it's not all that big, it's not something you have to go home and sweat your pillow at night thinking, can I figure this out? There's nothing to figure out. That's the beauty of the obvious. That's why it's such a short-lived, infinite hobby, and no one particularly cares for it, if they're civilized. His life handles it by the fact that no one asks about it. No one would stand up and say, wait a minute. You know, do you pick it out because it's the best place of the lower class? No, you know, they do that. By the way, I guess I threw it in the wrong direction. It's the guy, it's not the reporter would actually get eaten up. It'd be the guy who said it. I assume you followed what I meant. I don't know why. It'd be the speaker. The spokesman is what I meant to say. Well, if you didn't follow that, if you got misled, Jesus. I know that I kept saying the reporter. The speaker could not respond. An intelligent man, in a sense, you could take him aside after. You understand the reporter says, did you pick it out because it's the best place? After all that thing, or, you know, was that just some kind of hocus pocus you do about doing all those research and those big old things you said that you considered 27 different locales, and it always ends up over in some minority, lower class area of the state or the city. Is that the reason you do it? And the guy goes, well, you simple, you know, you imbecile, certainly it is. You know, he's the guy that can't do it is what I meant, but everybody knows it's true. But that shows the value of what ordinary people, I know they won't stand up and shake a fist for the truth, but it shows the value of what ordinary people call the truth, because they know the truth. What difference does it make? Even the people living out there. You can say, well, they're lower class, most of them are illiterate. But you think they don't know why it's over there? If you said, well, if they're that lower class, it's just they take it as, again, that, life is pissing on them again. But if you took some of them aside and said, have you ever thought about the fact, I don't know who you guys know this, you're telling the people they're about to put in the toxic dump, and you explain to them what it is, it's going, you'll never be able to screw again, your hair will fall out, and your wife will get ugly, and your children and all your animals will die. And they go, God, that sounds about like my life. And you go, but if you told them, if you said, do you know that around the country, they call it toxic dump. Anyway, it puts out, it doesn't just smell bad. I mean, it'll literally kill you. They go, well, I can believe it. I never heard of it. And they said, well, I just wanted to tell you something. In the United States right now, there are 227 of these kind of dumps. Okay. Did you know that every damn one of them, I've been there, I've checked them out, every damn one of them is in neighborhoods like yours. There's not one of them over where bankers, the side of town over there in the north side of Oklahoma City. You say, yeah, I got a brother who's a gardener over there, works for a guy. Okay. Not one of those is in any neighborhood like that. Is he going to be surprised? Is this guy going to go, are you serious? This is America. It could be anywhere. You can holler, this is Italy. This is Albania. It doesn't matter where it is. Well, there's some of the philosophers, I think, on their bumper stickers in Mississippi, it says, let the big dog eat. Or that may be the University of Georgia now I think about it. You don't put, or I'll give you a new one. I got a brand new bumper sticker or a brand new adage. You don't put no toxic waste dump over where the big dog eats. If the big dog had enough sense to try to stay in power without killing everybody, that is, be a politician as opposed to a tyrant on the surface, then he could talk about it and say, yeah, I know I've been making them throw all the garbage over there where the rest of you, the pack lives. I'm going to tell you what, you guys discuss it for a while, maybe set up a committee and discuss the possibilities of maybe moving it closer to where I sleep. Report back to me. Take your time. maybe even appoint a subcommittee to report to the committee and then bring it to me and we'll discuss it. No hurry. That's civilization. Did you follow? The people there, it's not any kind of big secret. They're not some kind of political intrigue. That's another sign of the stupidity why I keep laughing at the conspiracy ideas. Is them thinking, wait a minute, there's a conspiracy. What conspiracy? Are you blind? And them go, wait a minute, there's some kind of conspiracy because I just knew it. I told my brother. When I heard that they were considering building a toxic dump site here in Oklahoma, now that's been 10 years ago, you check. My brother, well, he's dead now, but my brother would have told you, I told him, I said, you watch and see, they're going to move that thing right over there in a neighborhood just like that one. Oh, they'll go out there and they'll hold some kind of meetings and they'll say they're considering over here and there and they'll move it there. And then people go, what a conspiracy. Back to my dramatics. Are they all just absolute? Walking around, first class, strikingly splendid imbeciles? Well, what conspiracy? They did it right in front of your face. How can you call it a conspiracy when we've got 227 toxic dumps and every damn one of them, you can take a picture of this neighborhood and go to any other state and say, does this look like the neighborhood where they built the toxic dump here? And you can show it to somebody in New Hampshire and they'll say, well, yeah, I know what it is. They all look alike. They put them in the same place. That's a conspiracy? Yeah. It's the conspiracy of civilization. That we cannot talk about the obvious. That will not do. And do you understand? It's not hidden. It's not a conspiracy. It's why they have to call it a conspiracy. You have to flag it's hidden. It's the same basis that religion came from, myths. It's the people there. You go to them and say, they built it here just because you people can't do anything about it. No. They're going to go, I can't believe it. They just don't know what to do about it. They know. Everybody knows it's true. I don't mean just they know it. Everybody knows it. How can you tell if you got a drinking problem? Everybody knows what I said. Well, if you don't know, I can tell you one way to know for sure. If you don't know whether you got one, you got one. No. I mean, it's so silly, you think, why even talk about it? Because we're civilized. We want to help. And in a sense it does. That's what life is doing, talking to itself like, well, perhaps I got too many drunks. Perhaps I got too many of my 6 billion brain